The FBI Director, Kash Patel, is being asked by the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman, Chuck Grassley, to defend his use of the agency's planes. This new inquiry by the Iowa Republican comes despite Patel's own criticism of past directors' use of FBI aircraft. Listen.
Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Go take their money. Chris Wray doesn't need a private jet.
According to the letter sent to Patel, which CNN has reviewed, Grassley is also asking about the purchase of BMWs. Joining us here in the Situation Room is CNN senior reporter Annie Grayer, who's been reporting a lot about this. What all is Grassley asking Patel here, and how did all this come up?
Well, Wolf, Grassley has some very specific questions for Patel. He wants to know every flight that Patel has taken on an FBI plane. He wants to know how much each of those flights cost and whether that flight was taken for personal or professional use. Now, if the flight was used for personal reasons, Grassley is also asking Patel to state whether he has reimbursed taxpayers for those flights. Grassley is also asking Patel for a cost breakdown of why the FBI purchased these BMWs and to compare it to some other vehicles in a cost-benefit analysis. Now, this letter that Grassley sent to Patel on May 5th was not publicized by the Republican chairman. Actually, Democrats on the House and Senate Judiciary Committee found this letter as a part of their own investigation into Patel's spending habits. So it's notable that the Republican chairman who oversees the FBI, the Republican chairman of the Judiciary Committee, is also interested in learning the answers to these questions. But Grassley says in his letter to Patel that I reviewed that he's asked these questions of FBI directors past, regardless of party. And he has given Patel up until May 19th, according to the letter, to respond to these questions. The FBI said publicly that they defend the director's spending habits, that there's no real question or concern here. But the question is going to be, did Patel respond to this May 19th deadline, and how much does Grassley want to push this issue? It was a voluntary request initially made on May 5th. Is Grassley going to renew that request if he didn't get the answers? If he needed, he could go as far as subpoenaing the information if he really wanted to. So this is just a really interesting investigation developing on the Hill.
Was there any legitimate reason for Kash Patel, the FBI director, to go to Milan, Italy for that game, that Olympic game, to watch it?
The FBI says so, but it's come under major scrutiny, and it's really raised larger questions about his spending habits, is why we have so many investigations popping up on the Hill. And what we're seeing from Grassley's letter today is that there is bipartisan interest in getting the answers to these questions.
See if they do. All right, Annie Grayer, thank you.
FBI Director Kash Patel in a congressional investigation into alleged, quote, abuse of FBI jets and tax dollars. You know, the investigation was launched today by the ranking members of both the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, Senator Dick Durbin and Congressman Jamie Raskin, who joins us in a moment. Quoting now from the announcement of the congressional probe into, quote, Director Kash Patel's misuse of taxpayer-funded resources, which was launched in part after, quote, receiving new details from sources about Patel's excessive travel, luxury expenditures, and personal activities disguised as official business. One example cited, Director Patel's now quite well-known trip to the Olympics in Milan. Well, for some, the beer chugging belied the Bureau's stated purpose for the trip, long-planned official business, which just happened to coincide with the Olympic hockey finals of Team USA versus Canada. Kash Patel is a big fan of hockey. In a letter addressed to Director Patel, Senator Durbin and Congressman Raskin point out that when he first announced he'd be attending Olympic hockey, there was no mention of FBI business. Patel wrote in a social media post nearly 8 months before the games, NHL agreed to let the boys play in the next Olympics this coming winter. First time in over a decade, Team USA, I'll see you there. Director Patel was asked about the Olympic trip at a congressional hearing in May.
You attended the Olympics in Milan. How much did your trip cost, and to what extent did that help you carry out your mission?
We purposely planned that trip around the Olympics because, as I mentioned in my opening, the top cyber criminal from the CCP was housed in Italian custody. While there, we were able to work an agreement, an arrangement to have that individual expelled from Italy instead of going back to China. That individual was returned to America 2 weeks ago.
CCP refers to the Chinese Communist Party. He's speaking about this man, a Chinese national extradited to the U.S. from Italy more than 2 months after Patel's Olympic locker room celebration. The investigation also cites special perks on official international trips, including VIP snorkeling in Hawaii. That is likely referring to a snorkeling trip the director reportedly took to the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor, hallowed ground, a military cemetery where more than 900 service members are entombed. Snorkeling there is not allowed, with some rare exceptions for military and government officials, normally those responsible for managing the memorial. The VIP snorkeling was not on Director Patel's official schedule for his trip to Hawaii. Beyond VIP perks and international travel, lawmakers on both sides of the aisles are demanding answers on how Patel gets around Washington. It was revealed today by Durbin and Raskin that Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee and a stalwart ally of President Trump, sent a letter to Patel asking him to defend his purchase of BMW SUVs. Patel had reportedly directed the FBI to purchase the luxury vehicles, despite the longstanding policy of the FBI director being driven around in Chevy Suburbans. In Grassley's letter, he also wanted Patel to list each flight he took on an FBI aircraft, if it was for personal reasons, and if so, if he had reimbursed the government. When asked for comment on the story regarding the SUVs, an FBI spokesperson said that 2 of the FBI's armored Suburbans needed to be replaced and that the BMWs, quote, had already been purchased by the State Department, sitting idle and unused in their warehouse. The FBI purchased the vehicles from the State Department. Whatever the explanation, the many questions surrounding FBI Director Patel sure seem a far cry from then citizen Kash Patel.
Chris Wray doesn't need a government-funded G5 jet to go to vacation. Maybe we ground that plane. $15,000 every time it takes off. Just a thought.
Go take their money. Chris Wray doesn't need a private jet.
Chris Wray was the former FBI director. The ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, joins me now. So, Congressman, you obviously been a frequent critic of Director Patel. How confident are you that Senator Grassley, who's been a staunch ally of President Trump, is committed to getting to the bottom of who is paying for what when it comes to the director's personal travel?
Well, he sent a letter back on May 6th. We've been demanding answers to this set of problems for several months. All the evidence that we have indicates that the taxpayers are footing the bill for junkets and splurges and special recreational experiences for the FBI director. And now we know that there is serious bipartisan concern. The chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Chairman Grassley, is demanding answers, and Senator Durbin, who's the ranking member over on the Senate Judiciary Committee, wrote a letter with me today demanding an accounting. Now, look, the FBI director is supposed to travel on an official plane, even if he's taking a personal trip. But it seems pretty clear to the whole world that that was a personal recreational trip when he went out to see his beloved American Olympic hockey team play, and we saw him chugging the beers and partying with the boys. As he said, he should pay for that trip. He's talking about grounding an airplane the FBI director used on official business for $15,000. That trip to Milan cost more than $100,000. So we want to make sure that he has written a check to the taxpayers to reimburse us for that, because we don't pay for VIP snorkeling. We don't pay for jet skiing. We're not paying for luxury travel. That's not what we're in it for. And it's obviously a massive diversion and distraction from the real work of the FBI.
And has Director Patel offered Senator Grassley, to your knowledge, any proof of reimbursement for private use of FBI aircraft?
No, we are aware of no proof or documentation of reimbursement on any of these cases. And we know that Senator Grassley has asked for it, and we're asking for it too. So we now have bipartisan and bicameral determination to get to the bottom of what's happening over there, including on the purchase of the BMWs.